How can you estimate to find the percent of a number? Think about this question during the lesson. This graph shows the eye colors among 500 students at a school. About how many students have brown eyes? Blue eyes? How can you use what you know about percents and their fraction equivalents to estimate? According to the graph, 46% of the students have brown eyes. Estimate 46% of 500. So, 46% of 500 is about half of 500. About 250 students have brown eyes. Why do you use 50% here? Why are the numbers compatible? 50% is easy to use because it is equivalent to 1/2. You can compute 1/2 of 500 mentally. Why not use 45%? Explain. "45% is equivalent to 4500ths or 9/20ths. You can use 45%, but those fractions are more difficult to compute with mentally. According to the graph, 23% of the students have blue eyes. Estimate 23% of 500. You can use 25% to help you estimate 23%. Which is an equivalent fraction for 25%?
Select your answer.
25% equals 1/4. So, 23% of 500 is about 1/4 of 500. About 125 students have blue eyes. Now you know how you can use fractions to estimate percents.
Suppose the graph shows eye colors among 120 students in 6th grade. About how many 6th grade students would have green eyes? Use estimation to find the answer.
Okay, so we're going to look at this graph, and it says what will be the percentage of students with green eyes. So we have green as 16%, but I am not going to use 16. I want to estimate, so an easier number to deal with would be 20%. And then 20% as a fraction would be 20 over 100. And if you simplify that, you would divide by 5 and you would get 4. No, I can divide by a greater number, and I can do 10. If I divide 20 by 10, I would get 2. And if I divide 110, I would get 10. No, I can have a greater factor. And sometimes you have to do this so that you can simplify it to the smallest degree. 20 divided by 20 is 1. 100 divided by 20 is 5. Now I have the smallest fraction, representation of 20%, so 1/5. And then it says, for the question, it asks about how many 6th grade students would have green eyes. So 1/5 of 120 students. So we would multiply by 20. And then you have, 120. And then you multiply, you would have 120 over 5. And then 5 will go into 120. Oh, what's going on my screen? 120 into 5 would be, that would equal 25. So that means that there are about, because it's an estimate, about 25 students that have green eyes.
Use the results of the survey shown at the right about how many high school students plan to get a summer job.
53% of 94 students surveyed plan to get a summer job. So one way to solve is rounding to estimate 53% of the 94 students. 94 rounds to 90. 53% is about 50%. And so 50% is half. Half of 90 is 45. So about 45 students plan to get a summer job. Another way is to use compatible numbers. So we can use 100 for 94 and 50% again for 53%. And then you multiply half of 100, which is 50. So about 50 students plan to get a summer job. Both 45 and 50 are good estimates for the number of students who plan to get a summer job.
Students in another survey were asked whether they plan to attend summer camp. Out of the 56 students in the survey, 44% said yes. Use rounding and compatible numbers to estimate how many students plan to attend summer camp.
We're going to use both ways that we saw in the example. So the first is rounding. So we're going to round, they've done the percent for us, 44% to 40%. And so 40, let me just write as a fraction, will be 40 over 100. And then you would simplify that and you would get 4 over 10, or simplify further would be 2/5. And then we have 56 come round to 60, and then we have 2/5 times the 60, and 2/5 times 60 you could multiply straight across. Let me use a different color. Multiply straight across, but I like to simplify first, so we can simplify the 5. Why is it not writing? It's not letting me write. Okay, the 5 and the 6, that's going to be a 1. And divide 5 and 60, that's 12. And so 2 times 12 would be 24. And then 1 times nothing, or 1 times 1, the invisible 1 under 60 would be 1. So that is essentially 24. So there would be about 24 students that plan on attending the summer camp. Now let's look at the compatible numbers. Choose a different color. Now we have 44% is again at 40%, and so we know those equivalent of those fractions there. That's 10 to 5th. Now we have blank is a compatible number for 56. That could be, in this case, I would still use 60. So then your answer then would actually end up being all the same if you were to use 60, which is what I would do, right? I guess another option could be that you use the compatible numbers such as 50. So let's try doing 50 instead of 60. Let's try that. So let's say I did 50 instead of 60 as a compatible number, because 50 is easy to work with. So 50 is a compatible number for 56. And then we know this is 2/5 multiplied by 50. Again, I would want to simplify. So then I would take the factors of 5 and 50. That would definitely be 5, and so that would be a 10. This would be a 1, and so that would be a 10, because 10 over 1, 20. 2 times 10 is 20, and then over 1, which would just be a 1, so it would be 20. So there would be about 20 students that plan to attend summer camp. So both are good estimates of the students that plan to attend the camp.